Kenya versus Nigeria. If you're African, you've probably had this argument. If you're Kenyan or Nigerian, you've definitely had this argument. These are two of Africa's biggest economies, both punching on the global stage, both with passionate people who will defend their country to death. So let's settle this once and for all. Who is actually winning? We are going to compare everything: economy, technology, infrastructure, education, culture, sports, the works. Before we dive in, let's set the stage. We look at population. Nigeria has 223 million people. That's the most populous country in Africa by far, and by 2050, they are projected to hit 400 million. Kenya has 55 million people, about a quarter of Nigeria's population. Still a decent-sized country, but Nigeria is in a different league when it comes to population. More people mean a higher domestic market, more workers, more consumers. That's powerful. But it also means more mouths to feed, more jobs to create, more pressure on everything. Size. Nigeria is bigger geographically too, about 924,000 square kilometers, while Kenya is around 580,000 square kilometers. So Nigeria's got more land, more space, and more room to grow. Location. Both countries are really well positioned. Kenya sits on the Indian Ocean in East Africa. The port of Mombasa connects East Africa to Asia. Kenya is also the gateway to Uganda, South Sudan, parts of DRC, region hub energy. Nigeria is on the Atlantic in West Africa. Lagos is the economic engine of the region. Access to West African markets, Atlantic trade routes. So they are both strategic, both important, and we can call that a tie. Economy. Nigeria's economy is about $477 billion, the largest economy in Africa, bigger than Egypt, bigger than South Africa. This is a heavyweight. Kenya's economy is about $115 billion. Fourth in Africa, which is a bit respectable, but Nigeria's economy is more than 4 times bigger. So Nigeria wins here, right? But let's dig deeper. If you divide that GDP by the number of people, basically economic output per person, you get Nigeria to be at $2,140 per capita. And Kenya is at $2,090 per capita. So Nigeria has massive economy, which is spread across more people. So per person, they are producing about the same, which is a bit interesting. So where does this money come from? Here is where it gets really different. In Nigeria, they get their money from oil. About 90% of export revenue comes from oil. So when oil prices are high, Nigeria is doing great. Money flowing, projects are happening, and there's optimism everywhere. But when oil prices crash, everyone hurts. Budgets are cut, projects are cancelled, economic pain. In Kenya, there's no oil, so which honestly might be a blessing because it affords diversification. There's tea, there's coffee, there are flowers which are exported to Europe, there's tourism, there's technology, there's financial services. So in Kenya, no single thing dominates. So when one sector struggles, others keep the economy moving. Kenya's economy is smaller, but more stable, less vulnerable to oil price shocks. And long-term stability matters. Corruption. Transparency International ranks countries on corruption. Lower number is better. Kenya ranked 126 out of 180 countries, while Nigeria is ranked 145. Both are bad. Let's just be real. Nigeria is worse on paper, but honestly, both countries are bleeding billions to corruption. Public money is vanishing into private pockets. It's massive, and it's a massive problem in both places. Doing business. How easy is it to start a company? One bank used to rank this. Kenya used to be number 56 globally, while Nigeria number 131. So in Kenya, it's easier to register a business, there's less red tape, and fewer facilitation fees in quotes, and of course, faster permits. While in Nigeria, there's more bureaucratic hurdles, there's more waiting time, and obviously more expenses. So if you're an entrepreneur trying to build something, Kenya is the easiest place to do it. Technology. This is where Kenya really shows up. M-Pesa. In 2007, Kenya launched M-Pesa. The idea, send money via text message. No bank account needed. Sounds obvious now, but back then it was a game changer. Today, over 50 million Kenyans use M-Pesa, almost everyone. And it didn't stay in Kenya. It was copied in Tanzania and Uganda. Even in India, they studied it. Mobile money spread because of what Kenya built. Nigeria had traditional banks, slower to adapt, though they are catching up fast now with fintech. But Kenya was fast, and that put Kenya on the global tech map. Startups. Nairobi calls itself Silicon Savannah. Innovation hubs like iHub, startups like Twiga Foods, BRCK, Sandy venture capital flowing in. Lagos has an even bigger tech scene, which makes sense because the population of 223 million is a huge market. This attracts investors. So Nigeria's got unicorns, billion-dollar companies, Flutterwave, InterSwitch, Andela, and so on. 2023 venture capital funding. Nigeria about $1.2 billion and Kenya about 800 million US dollars. So Nigeria's got more funding, bigger companies, but Kenya, with a quarter of Nigeria's population, is punching way above its weight. Getting online. So who is more connected? Internet penetration. Kenya is 85% of people are online, while Nigeria is only 55%. Mobile phones. Kenya, we have 120% penetration. So there are more SIM cards than people, while Nigeria is only 85%. Kenya's population is more connected, more people who can use digital services. That matters for tech growth. Here we have the tech verdict. Nigeria's got the bigger ecosystem, more money, more unicorns. That massive market is a huge advantage. But Kenya innovated fast with M-Pesa. Kenya's more connected, and for its size, Kenya's tech scene is seriously impressive. Infrastructure. Roads, airports, electricity. Let's talk infrastructure. Trains. Kenya built the standard gauge railway, Mombasa to Nairobi. Modern, fast, which actually works. It is also Chinese funded, but it's operational, which is something. Nigeria is building the Lagos Abadan Railway, which is also Chinese funded. So both countries are improving, but Kenya is a bit ahead here. Let's look at ports. In Kenya, we have Mombasa Port, busiest in East Africa, serves Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, and parts of DRC. Congested but critical. In Nigeria, there is Lagos Port, serves West Africa, also congested. but Lake Deep Seaport could be a game changer. So both have major ports with congestion issues. We can call this a tie. Airports. Kenya, there is JKIA, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, which is the hub for East Africa. Kenya Airways connects the continent, busy, needs expansion. In Nigeria, there is Lagos and Abuja airports. More airports because it's a bigger country with more people, but of course is also congested. In Kenya, airports are better run. Kenya Airways is stronger regionally. Electricity. This is where both countries struggle. Access to electricity. Kenya, we have 75% of population has access to electricity in Kenya. 75%. In Nigeria, it's only 55%. But access doesn't mean reliability. Kenya has frequent power outages, though geothermal is helping. Nigeria's generators everywhere. I better pass my neighbor. Generators are iconic in Nigeria because of the power grid is so unreliable. Kenya's got better access, so it's slightly more reliable, but both countries have serious electricity problems. So infrastructure verdict, Kenya's got a slight edge, better airport, railway, operational, better electricity access. But both countries need massive infrastructure investment. So there is work in progress for both. Education, literacy. The literacy levels for Kenya is 82%. The rate of literacy in Kenya is 82%, while in Nigeria is 62%. So Kenya is more literate, has more literate population, which is a big advantage. Universities. Nigeria has more universities, of course, considering the population. Private, state universities, federal universities. There is a large system because of larger population. There are universities like universities of Ibadan, Lagos, Ahmadu Bello, which are strong institutions. In Kenya, we have the universities, the likes of University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, private ones like Strathmore. So there's a smaller system, but good institutions. And also many Kenyans study abroad too. So Nigeria's got the larger higher education system, which makes sense given the population. Brain drain. Both countries lose educated people to immigration. Doctors, engineers, tech workers heading to the US, to UK, Canada. It's a problem for both. Though the diaspora does send money back home. Music. Now we look at culture before we go to music. This is where Nigeria really dominates. So now we look at music. Nigeria music is everywhere. Nigerian music is everywhere. Afrobeats is filling stadiums in London, New York, LA, Dubai, Grammy wins, global tours. There's cultural domination in Nigeria. In Kenya, we are also not very much behind, but we have regional success and it is also growing, but not at Nigeria's global level, not even close. So Nigeria wins music, hands down. Film, Nollywood, second largest film industry in the world by volume, after Bollywood, before Hollywood. Nigeria produces more than 2,500 films a year, watched across Africa, low budget but massive output and reach. Kenya has Riverwood, which is a growing industry and quality is improving, but nowhere near Nollywood's scale. So Nigeria dominates film here too. We come to sports. So this is where Kenya gets its own revenge. Nigeria, football, the Super Eagles are competitive, regional powerhouse, decent track and field. In Kenya, we have distance running, marathons, middle distance, Eliud Kipchoge, Faith Kipyegon. They are absolute legends. So Kenya owns athletics. Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Kenya 10 medals, 4 gold. Nigeria 2 medals, 0 gold. In sports, Kenya dominates where it matters, the Olympics. Diaspora. Both countries have huge influential diasporas. Nigerians is everywhere, US, UK, Canada, doctors, engineers, artists, entrepreneurs, very visible. Kenyans too, significant communities, especially in the US and UK, which said remittances back home. Nigeria's diaspora is larger and more globally visible, considering also their population back home. So Nigeria takes a slight edge in this area. The challenges. Let's be real about what both countries struggle with. Corruption. We mentioned this, but it's worth saying again. Corruption is stealing billions from both countries. Political elites enriching themselves, public projects inflated, police asking for bribes. Both countries terrible on this. Both need serious reform. Inequality. Small wealthy elite, large poor population, and struggling middle class. That's both Kenya and Nigeria. The wealth gap is massive in both places. Unemployment. Youth unemployment. Nigeria between 35 and 40%, while Kenya is between 25 and 30%. Millions of young people can't find work. Educated youth driving Ubers or even selling things on some streets, which is wasted potential. There's a crisis level in both countries. Ethnic tensions. In Nigeria, where there are over 250 ethnic groups, religious divide between Muslim North and Christian South, Boko Haram insurgency, harder farmer conflicts. Kenya, over 40 ethnic groups, politics often tribal. 2007 post-election violence killed over 1,000 people, and the country is still healing from that. So both countries are struggling with managing diversity and preventing ethnic violence. Security. Nigeria, Boko Haram, banditry, kidnapping for ransom, serious security challenges, especially in the north. In Kenya, there is Al-Shabaab attacks from Somalia. Nairobi is relatively safe, but the threats exist. So Kenya's security situation is less severe than Nigeria's, but both face real challenges. So who wins? This depends on what you care about. If you're asking who has the bigger economy, Nigeria at 477 billion US dollars versus Kenya's 115 billion US dollars, not even close. If you're asking who has more people, of course Nigeria with 223 million population. That's a massive market. If you're asking whose music is taking over the world, Nigeria wins hands down. But let's flip the question. If you're asking who is easier to do business with, Kenya ranked 56 globally versus Nigeria at 131. And if you're asking who wins more Olympic medals, Kenya, and it's not even close. And if you're asking whose economy is more stable, Kenya, because when oil prices crash, Nigeria feels it hard. Kenya doesn't have that risk. So the answer is both and neither. Look, both countries have young populations bursting with talent. Both have entrepreneurs building amazing things. Both could be economic giants. But both are also bleeding potential. Corruption stealing billions, youth unemployment at crisis levels, inequality where a tiny elite lives like kings, where millions struggle, That's for both countries. And honestly, the real competition isn't Kenya versus Nigeria. The real fight is both countries versus corruption, both versus inequality, both versus this cycle of wasting potential. Imagine if Kenya and Nigeria actually worked together. Take M-Pesa, Kenya's mobile money revolution, and scale it across Nigeria's 223 million people. That could be transformative. Take Nollywood's cultural power and combine it with Kenya's tech infrastructure. You'd have an entertainment giant that could compete with Hollywood. Free trade between East and West Africa, combined infrastructure projects, sharing what works. That's the Africa we could build. Not Kenya versus Nigeria trying to prove who is better, but Kenya and Nigeria lifting each other. So here is my final answer. Nigeria is winning if you measure by size and cultural influence. Kenya is winning if you measure by efficiency and stability. But Africa only wins when both countries succeed. And now is your turn. Drop your verdict in the comments. Are you Team Nigeria or Team Kenya? Or your team, can we please just work together? And if you're from Ghana, South Africa, Tanzania, or whichever country, and you are thinking, what about us? I see you. Drop a comment. You might compare your country next. Subscribe to Wandia Chronicles, where we do African stories the real way. Data-driven, no bias. And that's how you know we are being honest. Until next time, bye.